and welcome to another episode of The Partial Historians. I am Dr. Rad.
And I am Dr. G. Welcome.
We are tracing the journey of Rome from the founding of the city. Yeah.
We are, and it's taking us a long time because, frankly, we're going into all the details.
That's cool. It's still not as long as Rome lasted itself. So it's an analogy. It's something happening. There's something happening. Now, it's been a long time since we have done a normal narrative episode.
Yeah, we've been living very exciting lives. We've gone overseas together. We've presented and talked about our podcast.
And yet, we're still here.
Oh, we've made it back alive.
Exactly. So I think we need definitely a recap. So the last time we met, the Romans had come to blows over those faithless Aequians. God damn their hides.
I don't think they can be trusted. They've proven time and time again that they're completely untrustworthy and they cannot or will not keep their word.
Totally. They tried to snow Fabius and he totally saw through it. And they ended up coming to this battle where, of course, the Romans triumphed, and that's where we were up to last time we met. So, Dr. G, I believe there were some, random things that were happening in your account that do not show up in Livy whatsoever, as per usual.
It's exciting times. Random information, historical detail that may or may not be correct. More often than not, it's probably incorrect, but that's okay. I like Dionysius anyway. So this is roundabout towards the end of 466 BCE, and in this year, Dionysius includes this detail that they dedicate a temple to a small deity called Dius Fidius.
Small as in tiny, or small as in unimportant?
Small as in of mysterious origin and nature.
Okay.
Tall, dark, and handsome.
So who is this Dius Fidius? It sounds like a rapper from the 90s.
Well, I mean, he might be. But he's got all of the things that make him quite attractive. He could be of Sabine extraction.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense. The Romans have kind of melded with the Sabines, yep.
The Latin terms related to this god include semen.
Like what I'm thinking?
Seed.
Ooh. So all those garden analogies that parents use to talk to their teenagers about sex are actually based in some sort of fact.
He is the god of sowing his seed, indeed.
Okay, nice.
He seems to have some connection to Jupiter through Zeus Pistios. That seems euphemistic to me as well.
Yeah. I was going to say that. Is it just me? Does that word sound dirty?
Yeah, it did. And it's around about this time, according to Dionysius, that Dius Fidius has a temple dedicated to him on the Quirinal Hill.
Okay.
So,
is there a reason why they chose the Quirinal in particular? Because the Quirinal has something to do with Romulus post-death after deification, doesn't it?
it may be to do with the fact that this god is associated with a group of Italic deities.
That's what I was wondering, yeah.
Yeah, so, and this is one of these things that makes Dius Fidius mysterious, is that we don't really know the origin of where this god comes from. But, in exciting news for our listeners, if you're not certain about this kind of topic, which it'd be very fair not to be, the Romans don't just steal all of their gods from other people.
What? What about the Pantheon?
I know, right? I mean, it's got a lot in there. You're like, if I translate this name into Latin, it's this guy. Yeah, I mean, they certainly steal a lot.
Sure.
And by steal, we mean like appropriate, borrow, adapt, repurpose, expand their cultural horizons.
You're getting very kind here, the way you're talking about this.
But there are some indigenous Italic gods which we don't know a lot about, but they do crop up. And they do have little temples here and there, and this appears to be one of them.
It's weird that people like Livy don't write more about it. Why is Dionysius the one writing about this? Why?
I don't know.
Is it because he is a Greek and he's like, hey, something they didn't steal?
Hey guys, fun fact, something actually Roman.
Yeah, well.
I'm not sure. But that's my little religious aside.
Okay, fair enough.
As a prelude to the episode itself.
Anything else random in your account?
Oh no, I'm ready to go now, I think.
Okay, alright, cool. So, back to what's happening with the Aequians and the Romans. So what's happening in your account, Dr. G?
It is around about 465 BCE.
Around about, woo!
A roundabout, yeah. I mean, it's always a roundabout. So this means that we have some new consuls. Everybody likes new consuls.
Yeah, so you have new consuls.
I do have new consuls.
I'm in a
You might
mess.
be in a different
I'm
year.
in a mess, yeah.
I'm not sure if you're in a different year yet or not.
It's all crazy for me over here. You just go and I'll tell you.
Okay. I'm pleased to introduce Titus Quintius Capitolinus.
Oh yeah, no, I am in this year. Fair enough. Yeah.
Excellent. And also Quintus Fabius Vibulanus.
Yeah, one of the Fabian clan. They're
Consul
still around. They're
for
still
the
around.
second
Yeah. I
time.
know.
All right. So, because they both have, one is Quintus and one is Quintius, I can see how this might get confusing.
I didn't think of that.
Quintius is a reference to the Titus character.
Yeah.
And Quintus will be referred to solely as Fabius.
I was going to say, please don't tell me that you're actually going to continue with this. I thought for a second that's what you were going to say.
You're going to have to listen carefully for the next 15 minutes,
No,
everybody.
I like that idea. So I believe that in my account, the Aequians, after their defeat, they were pretty mad with their representatives because they're like, dude, why did you make us fight like a pitched battle or something? Why didn't we just go raiding? Because that's what we're good at. And so this is kind of what they do. They leave behind some people, of course, in their camp, but then they start crossing into Roman territory. They're basically trying to terrify the Romans. Is this the same kind of strategy that they use in your account?
I have a sense in which there's a lot of stalemates happening. So
Yeah.
the pitch battle thing doesn't really work very well, but certainly the Aequians then start to make forceful and violent eruptions into Roman territory.
What's with your sexual language today, Dr. G?
It's not me, it's Dionysius.
Well, this is exactly what happened. So their strategy works in that the Romans weren't expecting to see the Aequians around about their territory because they were under the impression they were just defeated. And so they're like, what is going on here? If they were just defeated and yet they're making inroads, something must be wrong. We must be in danger. So it's, in the city itself, it's not looking so good.
This leads to what seems... Okay, I'll start again.
Yeah.
I was just talking rubbish. So Fabius gets left in charge of a certain part of the army.
Right.
And Quintius gets in charge of another part of the army.
Yes.
And Quintius's role is to defend the territory which adjoins that of the enemy. This is what Dionysius tells us.
Right.
It's not at all clear which enemy he might be talking about because Rome has a lot right now. And
Yeah.
it's not just the Aequians.
I was going to say, that could be anybody.
Yeah, but Fabius goes out to plunder and to sort of attack the Aequians head on. But it becomes more apparent as we get into this narrative for the year that actually what Quintius has been asked to do is to engage in a defensive tactic of patrolling Roman land
Yes.
with the armed forces.
Yeah.
This seems pretty new to me from what we've been doing in this narrative so far. Usually the Romans vote in some new consuls, those consuls get some armies, and then they go out deliberately seeking some sort of pitched battle
Yeah.
on their frontiers.
Yes.
This time, Quintius is being told to sort of hang around and sort of monitor the borderlands.
I feel like that's because the Aequians are kind of like wily and you don't know what they could be up to. But yeah, that's very similar to what I've got in my account here because everyone's going crazy in Rome. There are all these, rumors, which of course are exaggerating what's actually happening with the enemy. But they start to calm down again when Quintius returns. The people get less scared, and he's like, what on earth were you afraid of, for heaven's sakes? We just defeated these guys. Jesus Christ.
Wow, yours
Yeah.
has a much more positive take on this than
Well,
my
it
my
is Libby,
account. So, I mean, the way that Dionysius relates it, Quintius is always in the wrong spot at the wrong time. So the Aequians continue to do raids across the border or into, like, sort of undefended territory. And Quintius is like, I've heard word, and rushes over with his forces and is a little bit late.
No, that is true. That's what happens. That's definitely what happens. Whenever he goes out to fight, he can't really find them. But it's more I think he just gets the opportunity in Livy to tell them, to like, buck up, don't be so stupid. Nothing like your consul telling you what an idiot you are.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I can't believe you did that again.
I think it's more just about like morale,
Okay. Because the problem for Quintius in this is that there's no way to gain any honor with this type of fighting as a consul. So like,
So do you think he's deliberately not finding them?
well, no, I think he's been given a dud role by the Senate.
I see what you mean.
You know,
Right,
so like
gotcha.
he can't go out and do something like noble and heroic and virtuous for his own virtuous. He's got to do this thing where he troops around and keeps running after the enemy, being like, "Where are they?"
Yeah.
And somebody's like, "Yoo-hoo!"
We're over here. Now we're over here. And now we're over there.
Exactly. And he runs over again, and he's like, "Where are they? Where did they go?" Yoo-hoo! So it's like Marco Polo or something for the entire year.
Nice, I like it. Well, see, yeah, I can understand why he's frustrated, because Livy tells me, without giving me much detail, because of course, why would you, that Fabius, on the other hand, is having much success with his campaigning against the enemy, and this is probably why he's getting a bit like, God damn it, where are these people?
Yeah, Fabius gets all of the luck. It turns out that the Aequians sort of turn up exactly where he is.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
For some reason. And then he's like, "Oh, well, there they are." And then he goes after them, and they fall quite quickly, and he takes all the booty, and he's like, "Woo."
Well, I think this is precisely the key to his success in Livy's account. He seems to have an instinct for where they would be, and so he's lurking, and he comes across them right when they're weighed down with all the stolen goods, and they can't run.
I don't know how to drag this gold basin any faster.
Exactly.
Somebody help me. Oh, not you, Romans.
And once again, I love the way that Livy puts it. It causes them to bitterly rue their pillaging. Damn my pillaging ways.
Wow.
When will I learn that crime doesn't pay?
Oh, the lamentations.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, Dionysius puts it that the Aequians just eventually just give up, run home, and then sit in their homes and watch while the Romans burn their fields, being like, again.
Ah, okay, that is not mentioned in my account. It says that a few of the Aequians did manage to escape Fabius's attack. But yeah, it's obviously not good.
It seems a bit of a messy year all around.
It does. It's a bit of a... But anyway, the consuls get to return to the city, which means that the courts are no longer suspended, because that had happened. Like there's been like a general...
What?
Yeah, well that had happened in my account.
This has never been mentioned in my account.
Okay. Yeah, well not in your account, but I totally mentioned it last time. Yeah.
Please, more details.
Yeah, so because both of the consuls were out on campaign, they had declared a suspension of the courts, which basically obviously means that not only the courts not up and running, but shops up and running. There's just a general suspension of stuff happening in the city.
Okay.
Because, stuff is happening elsewhere. They need to be focusing all their attention elsewhere. And in the place of the consuls, Quintus Servius had been serving as prefect of the city.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's at this time that Quintius, got to capture that elusive C, takes the census in my account. Does that happen?
Oh, there is no mention of a census in my account.
Well, there you go. So Quintius takes... Sorry, Quintius... Oh, God damn it. That C! Quintius takes the census. And then he carries out like all the rites that go along with that, the purification rites. And Livy actually gives me an incredibly precise number of how many people there are in Rome at this time.
I'm on a razor's edge.
104,714 citizens, not including orphans and widows.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite substantial.
I know.
I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah, exactly. So
Where did Livy get that figure
we can
from,
see
I wonder?
Rome growing. Indeed. And that kind of brings me to the end of the year, apart from what you already mentioned with the Aequians, having their farms ravaged.
They did. They watched their corn get taken away.
Indeed.
But I was going to eat that.
Yeah. That brings me to another year of with another set of consuls. How about you?
Yes. We are back in alignment.
Excellent. So I have the next consuls as being Aulus, Postumius, Albus, Regillensis, and Spurius, Fusus.
We're back, guys. It's another Spurius.
I'm loving it. Spurius.
We're back.
Yeah. Livy notes a slight discrepancy.
Oh.
Yeah, that some people say that that they say they name like Fusius instead of Furius, and apparently that might be to do with like one version being like an earlier form, and no one really knows which version to go with, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So, I mean, I checked these names out with Broughton,
Yes.
and so you're Aulus, Postumius, Albus, Regillensis.
Yeah.
Son of Aulus, grandson of Publius.
Mm-hmm.
The name comes from the Battle of Lake Regillus.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where the ancestry is
It
there.
is a
So
bit of a mouthful.
yeah, what a patrician family that is.
Actually, wait, should we just remind our listeners about the Battle of...
Why, yes.
Yes. This happened like way at the beginning of the Republic. It's like a massive battle between the Romans and the Latins.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's around about 496.
I think so, yeah.
And this is where you have the amazing vision of Castor and Pollux.
Yes, and that's when that temple was founded, I believe. It's around then, isn't it? And we have found archaeological remains to confirm. Lovely. Sorry, back to the narrative.
That's good. There's evidence.
Yeah.
And then we have Spurius Furius.
Yes.
Medullinus Fusus.
Ooh.
And the controversy with this guy from Dionysius seems to be that he just gets the name wrong, and he thinks it's Servius Furius.
Oh,
And
but that's nowhere near as cool as Spurius Furius.
I am never going to call him Servius Furius.
Never.
It's obviously
Screw you,
Spurius.
Dionysius, yeah.
But you'll be surprised.
I think Dionysius' naming is spurious.
Some spurious naming going on here. I cast aspersions.
Okay, so sorry.
Nice.
Yeah, okay, cool. So clearly there's still some issues. I mean, even though it seems like the Aequians have had their asses well and truly kicked on a number of occasions, and yet there seems to be ongoing issues in my account. What do you reckon?
There are ongoing issues. The situation in Antium is apparently still precarious.
Yes.
The Aequians are sending envoys thither in secret, and large numbers of Volscians on the pretext of trade.
A likely story. Yeah, and that's exactly it. The Aequians know that the Romans aren't going to let this go. They know that the Romans are going to start, fighting with them again. And in my account, it's not just Antium we're talking about here. We're talking about another of the Volscian towns, the Essatranian Volscians, who live in the city of... It sounds like I'm making a joke. I think it's Etc.
Say that again for me.
Etc. Etc. Etc.
Oh, that place. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I feel like we're getting into a really interesting section of our shared historical narratives because we are really starting to diverge.
Really? Because in my account,
I have no mention of this place.
Well, see, in my account, the allies of Rome, the Hernicians, they can see what's happening. And that would make sense geographically. And they're like, okay, Aequians, you can play that game. And they warn the Romans what the Aequians are up to. And this is where suspicion is aroused about the colony of Antium. Because Antium being, of course, a very important Volscian stronghold that the Romans have relatively recently captured and settled some of their own people there to try and obviously Romanize the place. Yeah. And so none of this happens in your account?
Well, I mean, it does, but it's all just happening in a slightly different fashion, really.
Okay, fair enough. Hit me with it.
So according to Dionysius, the colonists in Antium are slowly being corrupted by this Aequian and Volsci influence.
Yeah.
And the Hernicians are aware of this as well. But we don't get any detail about how they know.
No, that's not really clear. Livy says, well, at least according to the translation here, I admit I haven't checked the Latin. He says that the Hernicians just perceived it.
Yeah. In this one, it's even more oblique. They brought word that there was a large force of Aequians out and about near their country, encamped in their country and plundering stuff. And they'd seen that the Volscians were joining with the Aequians in the expedition, and they were a bit concerned, and they'd like their allies, Rome, sweet Rome, to step in and help.
I think it probably has something to do with the fact that it seems like some people are defecting. Like we already know that some people obviously left Antium at the time and went to the Aequii, who were their kind of allies at the moment. So I think it's just that there's like a natural bond between them because they've got Volscians living in Aequian territory. And they have had since Antium was captured. I feel like that's got something to do with it.
I also just want to put out there for the record that this is a huge failure for the land reallotment policy.
It is, isn't it? Poor Fabius.
I mean, any Romans that took up this offer are now in the middle of a nightmare of either being like, who do I choose? Who's going to try and kill me first? I'll agree with them.
Well, luckily the Romans have been warned because they haven't... the Volscians, the people in Antium, the Aequians, whoever is involved in this conspiracy, have not quite decided what exactly they're going to do to annoy the Romans. When the Senate obviously find out, thanks to the tip-off, and they summon the leaders of the colony to see them.
Oh.
Yeah, like to see the consuls, sorry, not the Senate.
Oh, okay. So they try to do some diplomacy?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like, I think they're trying to sort of nip it in the bud before anything massively serious comes out. And so they come, they're like, yep, hey, what's up? They don't try and get out of it or whatever. But the way that they answer the questions that are put to them make people more suspicious by the time they've left and they were before they arrived.
I find all of your claims spurious. Did somebody call me?
Yeah, that's right.
No, you, Spurius, Furius, not you.
And so it's kind of from that moment that the Romans are like, yeah, okay, we're going to have to go to war.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a much more delicately balanced situation in Livius' account than Dionysius gives anybody credit for.
How
because
unusual.
he moves straight from the Venusians turning up and being like, guys, we've got an issue, to the Senate voting and sending Aulus, Postumius to Antium and Spurius Furius to the Aequians.
Right, well, that's eventually what happens in my account, essentially. Spurius Furius gets a command against the Aequians. So, yeah, it ends up being the same way. I think it's just that the lead up to it is slightly different. Yeah, that makes sense. So, when Spurius Furius is sent out to engage with the Aequians, he goes into the territory of the Hernici. Is this where he heads in your account as well?
Oh, yeah. So, like, following that tip-off, he heads for Phoenician territory.
Yeah.
Looking for these Aequians he's heard about.
Yeah.
Probably has some Venusians with him, being like, we're the guys that came to you. Yeah. Please take us home in safety. He's like, you can ride with me, buddy.
And unfortunately, in my account, he's a little too furious for his own good. He didn't really know how many the enemy had, apparently because he hadn't actually sort of seen them in action and seen them all together. And so he's like, attack! Before he's got all the information. Is this again what happens with you?
Yeah, this is unfortunate. Yeah. They get themselves into a whole bunch of skirmishes and it doesn't really work out very well. And they're like, run away! And they basically have to pick up their camp and move it to a better, more secure location.
Yeah.
Have a higher rampart, for instance.
Ooh.
And a deeper trench.
Yeah. Why does everything sound so dirty today? Stop it.
It's military terminology. I can't help it.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, so the Romans are not in a good situation. They're basically surrounded. And they can't, in my account, it's so bad that they can't even send a messenger back to the city itself.
Yeah, and to make things worse, there seems to be an additional force of Aequians and Volsci that turn up to support the first Aequian army that Spurius has encountered.
Yeah. Luckily, again, though, the Hernici, God bless the little Hernici, they end up sending word that, of what is happening. And, of course, everyone back at home is like, oh, my God, what is going on? And so the Senate have to take quick action. Is this kind of how things turn out in your account as well?
Oh, no, I have a letter writing episode.
Oh, okay. Nothing like a letter to take the edge off.
Oh, yeah. So, it's a dark evening. Spurius is surrounded by the enemy.
Yeah.
He sits down in his tent and he writes a quick letter seeking help. Dear Quintius.
Dear Quintius, it is with a heavy heart that I have to write to you in such circumstances. I let my furious gens get in the way of my better judgment.
I'm going to put this letter on the fastest horseman I have. I'm hoping it gets to Rome in time for a new army to be raised to join me on the front.
If it doesn't reach the city, we are doomed.
We're in danger of being destroyed.
Help us, Chris Robinson. Please, help us.
So the letter eventually gets to Postumius, the other consul for the year.
Yeah.
It's about midnight when the letter arrives. Yeah, when the horseman gets there. So, he starts writing in the evening.
Yeah.
The letter gets to Postumius by midnight. And it's that point that Postumius starts going around and waking up the senators in their homes.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Dramatic.
All of a sudden, it seems like Postumius hasn't left for Antium yet.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, too slow.
I kind of get that feeling too. Yeah.
And so by the time it gets to the break of dawn, they've managed to rustle up Quintius, so the consul from the previous year.
Yes.
And they've given him proconsular power. They've invested him with some extra firepower.
Nice.
And they've gathered about 5,000 young men, the flower of the youth. And you're like, why weren't they enrolled in the army at the beginning of the year like everybody else?
What are they up to? Flowering around.
Don't ask questions.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, those sleepy ones are up and ready to go. And they're like, is my hair done? It is. And they start marching out by dawn.
Okay.
They're on their way.
All right. Well, see, something very dramatic happens for me, and I'm kind of curious to see whether this is where you're heading.
Ooh.
Postumius is charged to make sure that the Republic comes to no harm, and he is invested with dictatorial powers, and martial law is declared.
Oh, wow. No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look.
Score one, Livy. Hacha!
Livy, going places I never knew.
I know. And this is why I feel like he hasn't entirely left yet.
This is a hint that Postumius is still hanging around the city. He's just been given dictatorial power.
Well, yeah, and and it's in this capacity, I kind of feel like he sets off this proconsul, Titus Quintius, to relieve Furius in his dire straits in the camp.
Oh, so he has the power to invest somebody else with proconsular power.
I kind of feel like that's what's happening. Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I mean, which part of the Senate's going to wake up in the middle of the night to have a convention to be like, let's put somebody else in charge of this. Don't send Postumius. He has to go to Antium.
Well,
Slowpoke.
I think this is kind of how he rounds up all these dudes and sends them all off. He gets those flowers of youth happening, you know?
Oh, look, I love a good blossoming.
Yeah, exactly. And even, it's not just the Latins and the Venetians who are helping out here. It's even the colony of Antium that are ordered to provide emergency people to fight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, look, our accounts are very different at this point.
Well, there we go. I kind of believe my account, though. I feel like the Romans need this right now.
It sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Although I'm curious, because, I mean, I feel like they've been in these kind of battle situations before, and it always sort of just works out in the Romans' favour.
The Romans seem to be particularly scared.
Quaking in their boots, as it were. Well,
Yes.
according to Dionysius, the Aequians are suspecting this very move from the Romans, which is to send a horse in the middle of the night to wake up the flower of the youth to come back as fast as they can and to turn up and support. And I was like, my question in my notes is, how could they know?
They thought, okay, to give them the benefit of the doubt, they have been fighting the Romans for, I don't know, decades. So
a while now.
Maybe the Romans are getting predictable. The relationship's getting stale, guys.
It is. Let's spice it up.
Yeah.
So the Aequians decide to call them out on this and just attack in the middle of the night.
Okay. I kind of get that sense here because Livy talks about the fact that there's a lot of maneuverings happening and that the Aequians are sticking true to their tried and true strategy of never really letting the Romans know when they're going to attack, where they're going to attack. And luckily they've got enough numbers to do this, I guess.
Goodness me.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to have a lot of people considering again, I don't get it.
Keep losing people.
They just keep
How
coming.
do they keep growing them so fast? They've only got 104,000 according to the census count.
It's a lot of raids. Well, no, that's the enemy. Like, as in the Aequians have a lot of people. Yeah, because they just seem to be able to, like, raid, devastate Roman fields, and even think about maybe attacking Rome itself.
Yeah, maybe it's
Should
just...
their path be clear, this is.
Potentially just guerrilla warfare. I mean, you could make your numbers seem a lot bigger than what they might really be.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Possibly. Anyway, it seems that it takes the flower of the youth much longer to get places than one horseman riding through the night, hell for leather, being like, we're in trouble! Because they're not there when the Aequii attack. And there is a mighty struggle that lasts throughout the entire day. There are javelins, there are missiles, there are stones thrown by slings.
Wow.
Yeah. The Roman does a counterattack at this point.
Right.
And mentions that, Spurius Furius, being the kind of consul that he is, goes for it. But it also turns out that one of the legates of the army is Spurius's brother, Publius Furius.
Nice.
Yeah.
Another Furious.
Another Furious.
Yes.
Furiously together.
Together in their fury.
Yeah, but it seems that Publius Furius is maybe a little bit more ambitious than he should be, because he gets very excited because they start repulsing the enemy as the enemy is mounting the rampants.
The enemy's like, we're disgusted by you. The Romans. Ugh. Ugh.
I just
Can't even look at you. I'm going to go away.
vomiting
Ugh.
in my mouth.
Yeah.
But they get pushed back as they're mounting the ramparts.
Yeah.
Mounting the ramparts.
Once again,
They're getting
overly
close.
sexual language. My
I
God.
But Publius is like, I'm going to chase them down. And boy, does he do it. He runs ahead. He's got 1,000 dudes with him.
Yep.
It's all going really well, but boy, does he get himself into a pickle.
Tragedy strikes.
Oh, yeah, look.
He gets cut off, and he can no longer retreat.
He can no longer retreat. They get all the way back to the Aequians' camp. It turns out the Aequians have 5,000 men.
The Aequians continue to surprise the Romans by having,
Men.
troops. Yeah.
They surround the 1,000 men, and they're like, this is pretty good. And they offer at that point to take them all hostage.
Oh, okay. So they could have stopped fighting.
Yeah. They're like, how about it?
But this is a Furius we're talking about, Dr. G. He's not going to take it lightly.
Nope. He is certainly not going to take it lightly. And boy, do they just say they're going to keep fighting to the death.
Yeah.
And then they keep fighting
And
to
then they die?
the death.
Yeah.
All died.
It's not just a clever saying. Yeah.
No.
And meanwhile, poor Spurius is trying desperately to reach his brother because he knows his brother is in a difficult situation. And so he plunges into the midst of the battle as well. He's like, I will reach you, not knowing, I guess, that his brother has already dead.
Well, I mean, this is where our narratives diverge.
Ooh.
Because at this point, according to Dionysius, the Aequians decide to make the most of having killed 1,000 Romans, and they stick all of the heads on spikes and come back to where the Romans are encamped.
Oh, well, to be fair, that was just a bit of poetic license on my part. I don't know if he knows or not, but he is definitely fighting furiously to get to his brother, and as usual, is showing more furiousness than common senseness. And he receives a wound and almost gets killed, but luckily, because I couldn't bear it if a Furius died, Dr. G. Luckily, the men around him rescue him.
Oh,
But the Romans are scared now because, their consul's been pretty badly wounded.
I was going to say, I've got him getting a javelin through the shield
Yeah.
into the thigh.
Youch.
Who even throws like that? That's incredible.
That's gotta hurt.
So I'm guessing maybe some sort of apparatus was used, unless I'm not aware of the strength of the common Roman and Aequii soldiers.
Ooh, yeah, yeah.
But it seems like at that point, that's when Quintius finally arrives with the flower of the youth.
Yeah, because the Romans were definitely being, again, driven back to their camp. Things were looking really dire. And it seems like they're in serious danger of being, captured or wiped out or something. Except here he comes to save the day. It's Titus Quintius.
With flowers of youths.
And foreign troops.
We're here.
Well, I mean, allies. Whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it just goes back to a stalemate because everybody retreats to their own camp and they're like, I'm going to bunker down in a defensive position to recover from all of the losses.
Yeah, see, I think it's here the Aequians try and scare people with, the heads on spikes.
Oh, okay.
I think, yeah.
All right.
That's
Well, maybe they stick
the
them up
sense.
outside their camp. Being like, check out these.
Maybe so, yeah.
Come at us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it's definitely, less... the army itself is okay now. But yeah, it feels very it doesn't feel like a really strong finish in my account. How about you?
It's not a great finish.
No.
And moreover, in Dionysius, there is now a second Aequian and Volscii force, which is now on the move.
Oh dear.
Yes.
Wait, coming to this battle or just on the move elsewhere?
On the move elsewhere. Because
okay,
the Romans seem to be so tied up and so paranoid and have just sent the flower of their youth, this other force is now taking the opportunity to plunder Roman country.
How dare they? Do they have no honor? Do they have no honor?
What they've forgotten about is that Postumius hasn't left for Antium yet.
Yes, this is where Postumius comes back into my account as well.
Ta-da!
Again, here he comes to save the day.
And so he's like, hello.
He seems to have done a pretty good job in my account of stationing men at, good points and yada yada. So yeah.
And he's also given credit as a strategist, learning where the enemy is and then appearing before them.
Yeah. Like a god. Yeah, so it seems like both the Aequians and the Romans, in all of these various skirmishes, both lose a lot of dudes.
They do, and I mean, Dionysius spends a good couple of paragraphs talking about this, how the Aequians and the Volscii, this second force, is like, oh, Romans, they dash off into the forest, dump their gear, hide it, come back and be like, all right, now we're ready. Quickly. They didn't see that.
Quickly.
And they got into a fight. They killed lots of Romans, but also lots of them got killed as well.
Yeah, it's very mishy-mashy.
Yeah, so things turn in Rome's direction, but it's pretty much a blood fest at this point, and it's not at all clear where people are, how it's happening, if there is any clear victory.
I kind of feel like no. I mean, Livy gives me some numbers, but to be honest, I'm like, dude, why even bother? Like, it seems like both sides lose a lot. The Roman army ends up returning back to Rome. I didn't mention this before, but there had been a suspension of the courts again.
More suspensions.
Yeah, and then Livy records some divine prodigies. The heavens were ablaze with numerous fires. Portents were seen. People were terrified, and so they order like lots and lots of prayers, basically.
And the solution, my friends, prayer.
Yeah, well, the Romans basically begging forgiveness for whatever it is they have done. And after that, the Senate say, you know what? We should thank our friends. We should be grateful for what we have. Latins, Hernicians, thank God to you. Now, this is where the people from Antium come back in. 1,000 men from Antium had come, but too late were help. And so they're sent packing in disgrace.
Thanks, Antium, for nothing.
For nothing as usual. Jerk-face jerks.
Well, I have to say that it all sort of just tapers off to a very sort of slow finish in Dionysius. We have a sort of resurgence of Spurius.
Right.
He decides to seek out the Aequians. He's like, well, they've been resting in their camp for a while. I've been resting in mine. I think I can go on. The javelin's been pulled out. Let's do this.
God, this guy. No wonder he gets his name.
And the Aequians see him coming and they're like, oh, you've got to be kidding. And they retreat back to their city.
Right.
Being like, we've had enough of this.
Yeah.
And this allows the Romans a bit of a reprieve, really.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody needs it right now.
Yeah, but not before they chase down the Aequians as they're retreating and kill a lot of them.
Yeah.
But it seems like there is a real balance of losses and victory.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how it ends for mine as well, like a kind of mopping up operation. But yeah, it does seem like,
There's not much to be done there.
Not really much to be done.
No winners, lots of losers, less people alive at the end.
Yes, as tends to happen at the end of the war. And so, Dr. G, I feel like that brings us to the end of another year, and therefore brings us to the partial pick. All right, Dr. G, what's first cab off the rank?
Ooh, military clout.
Okay, there have been some good things by the Romans, certainly some bravery shown, but on the whole, I think a disappointing performance this year.
Yeah, I think the fact that they have fought a lot, I think it has to be a 5, but they haven't really won anything in any substantial way, and everybody's had a really bad time, so I can't give them more than 5, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I actually feel like it's a 4.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean,
okay.
It's been pretty bad, so... I'm going to say 4. What do you reckon?
Well, I think the loss of Publius Furius definitely...
That's what I mean.
Definitely is a downer.
How can we but mourn the loss of a Furius? I mean, God, if it was Spurius Furius, I'd be giving him 0. All right, so 4. What's our next category?
Our next category is diplomacy.
Okay. Don't feel like there's a lot of that happening if we're at war. What do you reckon?
I'm going to give them a fat 0 for diplomacy.
Nothing for diplomacy.
All right, expansion.
Once again, it's a 0 from me.
0 for expansion. Wow, this is possibly a historic low score. The next category is virtus.
Okay, I feel like we can give something here, maybe. I mean, look, Livy's clearly not thrilled with the performance of the Furius brothers. I mean, he does say, like, they're being a bit stupid and all.
They are, but if Publius Furius had pulled it off, that would have been an amazing moment for Virtus.
And I think the Romans still give points for bravery.
For trying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not great to die.
No.
On the negative side, though...
Yeah.
Quintius from the year before just has that sort of broad defensive strategy where he's always chasing after people but never really catching them. And doesn't even really have an opportunity to engage in Virtus unless what we need to take away from that narrative that he was too dumb to figure out where anybody was.
Maybe that's what they're really trying to tell us here. Look, I don't care who we're talking about here. I don't think like it's great, but I feel like there is something there. I feel like maybe a 4?
I was going with a 3.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. 3. Okay, 3 it is. And what's our final category, Dr. G?
Citizen score.
We hear nothing about the citizens, really, apart from the fact that they're terrified.
They're terrified and probably dying.
Yeah, so I feel like it's got to be, what, like a 0 or a 1?
Well, they're getting corrupted in...
I mean, they're not attacked, they're not taken over.
Yeah, but they're not having a great time. Maybe a 2.
Yeah, I think a 2. That leaves us, Dr. G, with a grand total of 9 golden eagles.
Oh no,
Oh,
Rome.
God, that's really bad.
That's a
really
real
bad.
failure.
Things are taking a turn for the worse, I'm not going to lie. All right, well, it's been a pleasure discussing Roman antics with you again, and such a delight to have Spurius Furius back on board.
Oh, so much Spurius Furious goodness.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Until next time, Dr. G.
Until then.